So you might be skeptical of the Alvin Bragg case or think it's politically motivated, but let me tell you, it is worse even than you can imagine. This thing is a dog's breakfast of dubious legal theories, motivated legal reasoning, and prosecutorial abuse. It all starts, of course, with Stormy Daniels, who alleges that she had an affair in 2006 with Donald Trump at a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe. Yes, 2006, nearly 20 years ago. But apparently what happens in Lake Tahoe does not stay in Lake Tahoe. Stormy Daniels emerges in 2016 in the midst of Donald Trump's presidential campaign against Hillary Clinton, and she wants to be paid for her silence about this alleged affair. Now that, from one point of view, is a form of extortion on the part of Stormy Daniels, but because this is all about getting Donald Trump, of course, no one ever talks about that. Trump directs his so-called fixer, Michael Cohen, to pay Daniels $130,000 for her silence. So far, so good. Hush payments like that might be sleazy, but there's nothing illegal about it. So where's the crime, you might ask, reasonably enough? Well, what happens is Trump reimburses Michael Cohen in 2017. Now, there's also nothing illegal about reimbursing someone for a hush money payment. But what the Trump organization does is it books this payment as legal services rather than a loan repayment. And Alvin Bragg says, aha, there is the crime of the century. Doesn't shock your conscience? Well, it shouldn't, because there may very well not be a crime here either. What Bragg says is that this is a falsification of business records. But the fact is that Michael Cohen was acting as Donald Trump's lawyer when he settled this matter with Stormy Daniels and did legal work for Donald Trump going forward. So there's at least a colorable case that the business records were accurate. And there's another problem. Falsifying business records on its own in New York is a misdemeanor, and in this case, a misdemeanor that the statute of limitations had already expired on long ago. So Bragg had to find a way around this, and the way he did it was by saying the alleged falsification of business records was in furtherance of another crime. What was that other crime? Well, he's been vague about it. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But supposedly some kind of violation of the campaign finance rules in order to steal the 2016 election. So just like magic, Alvin Bragg has now taken a misdemeanor and, by saying it's in furtherance of another crime, transformed it into a felony that the statute of limitations hasn't expired on. And by charging basically every act related to the loan repayment, Bragg takes the misdemeanor and makes it into 34 felonies with 136 years of jail time, theoretically, attached to it. Now, there are a number of problems here. Perhaps most fundamentally, it is not logically possible on this earth to steal an election that took place in 2016 with a loan repayment in 2017. That is chronologically impossible. You could look it up. On the matter of the business records, again, it's arguably the case that they were accurately recorded and not falsified. But even if they were falsified, there has to be another element of the crime. There has to be an intent to defraud. Defraud means a manipulative scheme to take someone else's money or property. And that simply wasn't the case here. Michael Cohen was actually given more money than the $130,000 he originally paid out. He was plussed up so he could pay taxes on this loan repayment. So no one was defrauded here, not even the tax man. So the underlying offense might not be a falsification of business records. Even if there was, no one was defrauded. Again, to make this a felony, there needs to be another alleged crime. Bragg and his team have been nebulous about this, which is shameful and in and of itself a prosecutorial abuse. But the suggestion is that it's a violation of federal campaign finance laws. The payment to Stormy Daniels under this theory was supposedly a campaign expense, but Michael Cohen and then ultimately Donald Trump paid it out of their own pockets. But hush money payments are not campaign expenses the way polling or, say, get out the vote efforts are. Surely, if Donald Trump had paid Stormy Daniels from his campaign funds, all his enemies would totally reverse course, say he was improperly misdirecting campaign funds to use for a personal expense. As it is, the Federal Election Commission, the experts in this area, looked at this matter and a potential violation and declined to proceed. And it's important to know that the FEC would have been looking at a civil violation. That involves a much lower standard than Alvin Bragg has to use to prove an alleged criminal violation. And even though the standard was lower, the FEC took a pass on this matter. To prove a criminal violation, Bragg needs to show that Trump willfully violated campaign finance rules. And since there's zero evidence that Donald Trump was even thinking about campaign finance rules, that's an impossible standard to meet. In short, there's nothing to see here except for Alvin Bragg's politicized drive to try to make Trump a quote-unquote convicted felon and help Joe Biden's presidential campaign. There's a reason that federal prosecutors looked at this matter and took a pass. There's a reason that Alvin Bragg's predecessor as Manhattan DA took a look at this matter and took a pass. There is one person who should be embarrassed that this trial has been taking place in Manhattan, and it's not Donald Trump.